Why is the camera on? Alright. What's on the agenda? You know, I'm really starting to think the problem is my glasses. I think that's where the glare is coming from. The old spectacles. Oh. What you call it? Oh, what was I going to talk about? Thing I was working on that I wasn't sure how to do. I'll do that later. Hey, robot chicken. Transformers don't go with Masters of the Universe. New segments of From My Shelf and the Certifiable Collector coming right up. Whose hand is that?
Comic books, movies, and everything in between. Today, I'll be making a few geek-worthy suggestions to you, the viewers, worth your time and money, and I'll be pulling them all from my shelf.
Hello all. Today on From My Shelf I'm going to recommend a pair of origin stories for two superheroes you're quite familiar with by now. Superman and Batman. In the spirit of the upcoming Batman Superman next year, and the beginning of the DC universe on film in earnest. These two characters pretty much have two of the greatest origins in the history of comics. They also have two of the most retold origins in the history of comics. I think most people at this point can recite the origins, or at least the keystone elements of the origins by heart. But telling a really great version of each of the origins can sometimes be more challenging than you would think. It's hard to screw up either one unless you really just don't care or you don't get it. And I picked two origins in particular that I like the best. Batman Year One by Frank Miller with David Mazzucchelli and Richmond Lewis. The first thing a lot of people will tell you about Year One is it's much more of Gordon's story. It's a relationship between two men, really. It's about Gordon and Bruce Wayne. Gordon, who is not yet commissioner, Bruce Wayne, who is just returning home from his travels abroad. And it's about sort of Gordon is stuck in this place of, not of nihilism, but he's given up. He's pretty much just living day by day by day. Not really caring that much, just trying to survive Gotham, just trying to raise his family. And then Bruce Wayne comes into the picture from out of nowhere, really, and he begins his mission as in development of what will eventually become Batman. It's a very human story. It starts out pretty much from the ground level and begins building up and up and up. You see Bruce Wayne struggling like crazy with first becoming Batman. He screws up, he learns from his mistakes, and he becomes better for it. It's not a traditional superhero story of, okay, here's the hero, here's the villain, we're going to go through this story until we get to the climax and there's a big showdown. It's not that. It's very much a character study of two men in a city who are trying to do good in a city that celebrates doing wrong. And it's about these two men coming together to form a partnership that will ultimately change everything. There are no traditional supervillains in the book. It's very much back down to Batman versus gangsters, Batman versus the mob, um, and Gordon versus the mob, Gordon versus the police force, Gordon versus everybody until Batman shows up. It's a book that I really recommend for anyone trying to get into the Batman world. If you're a first time reader, definitely start here because a lot of what you see in the 90s, in the comics from the 90s and the 2000s, all begin with this as a base. So start here and then go off into whatever you like. The thing about Batman is that he attracts so many really great writers and so many great artists that you really have to try to find a bad story involving the character. There are a multitude that are available. I'm going to go through a lot of them eventually, um, but definitely start here if you're just starting out. That's for sure. This book has been adapted into an animated movie, also called Batman Year One. It's also served as partial inspiration for Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. Um, but even Batman Begins is only partially inspired by it. The animated movie Batman Year One is actually not a translation, but very much an adaptation, and it's worth your time. But I would definitely say I would go with this before I looked at anything else, um, because this really is for me the definitive Batman origin. Um, until a better one comes along, and it's naturalistic. You know, this is a world that feels very natural. It doesn't feel put on. It doesn't feel. Uh, it feels like okay, this is just one step away from where we are, and I think because of that, it's easier to kind of step into largely, and which is another reason why you should definitely start here. The Batman comic books, superhero books in general, can go very, very broad and very big. So to find something that's very small, and very intimate, is a rare thing. To find something that's small and intimate and works is a rare thing. So definitely start here for everything Batman, and I think really for everything superhero. I mean, it's such a great origin that you can kind of look at it and read it and get what superheroes are all about and understand why they're so interesting. So please check this out. Superman Birthright, uh, by Mark Waid, Liu, and Jerry. I'm gonna butcher this name. Alan Guillaume. Superman Birthright is another retelling of the origin, but like Batman Year One, it's a very human version of the origin. Avoids a lot of the pitfalls, I think, of Superman's origin because so much of it kind of depends on a leap. You have to leap. Okay, you leap to understand this. You leap to go with this. You leap to go with that. This is not a step-by-step origin of Superman, but it's one that you don't really have to make a giant leap. Not to, yeah. Um, to understand. It's so human in that regard. It's much more. It's not. Superman is often described as an immigrant story, but I've never really seen it like that. I've always seen it much more of an adoption story. Very much the classic story, but rather than Clark Kent going from the farm to the Daily Planet and being Superman, it's Clark Kent on the farm going through his life and then kind of drifting out into the world. And he ends up in Africa. And he experiences things there that kind of make him question his identity and where he comes from. And it's in that questioning and exploration that he begins to find himself, and you kind of slowly see the identity of Superman kind of developing. Like Batman Year One, Superman Birthright has Superman coming into the picture, but he's still figuring things out. He's not quite the guy that we all know. He's getting there. And unlike Batman Year One, the focus is very much on Clark Kent, on in his story, and on how it all kind of comes together. Lex Luthor is very much a presence in this book. He doesn't share the book with Superman, although you do experience his story. Lex's origin here is very straightforward, but it's a sympathetic one. You care about the villain. You care about the person that he used to be, and you kind of shake your head at the person he's become. It's actually really, really strong. This is a really great retelling of the Superman origin. Like Batman Year One, I would definitely suggest going and reading this if you want to get into Superman. Of course, every iteration of the comics brings with it a different retelling of the origin. So, like Batman Year One, if you go and you read a Superman book or a Batman book after either of these, you're probably going to see differences. You're probably going to see, well, this doesn't quite line up with the origin that I see in Birthright, or this doesn't line up with what happened in Year One. That's fine. The origins are so big and so often retold that it's okay. You can enjoy other stories involving the characters, because both of these books, Year One and Birthright, offer you a human entrance into understanding them. Once you get that, once you have that base, you can just go wherever you want. Links to both on Amazon down below, and I suggest you check them out.